What's happening, fishing friends? Welcome to another episode. Today we're looking at a new rod I picked up, the Okuma Psycho Stick. Now, as always with my gear videos, I will take you through all the specifics of this rod, give you a breakdown, take a look at those up close. I will tell you about the reel and line that I would use on a rod with these specifications. And finally, I'll take you through, with a rod like this type of lure and line ratings, what type of lures would I use it on, or use on it? You know what I mean. We'll discuss all that and more, starting out with the specifics of this rod. Now, the first thing they talk about this rod is that it's a lightweight 46-ton blank, and man, you can tell. That's one of the things that you get when you get it, over those rods that are $50, $100. As you go up, usually the weight is going to go down. They're using usually a higher modulus blank, so like this one, a 46-ton, compared to most of the rods around $100, usually is a 24-ton. So a lot more sensitive blank that you're getting here, and lighter. This is a 4.3 ounce rod. The rod alone, 4.3 ounces. Pretty crazy. Now, the rear grip on it, it's got EVA back here, then it's got this ultimate, what do they call it? UMR, Ultimate Matrix Reinforcement. It's basically the weave that they're using when they put the rod together, the carbon blank. See, it's got a little bit of that back here, and that's what we're really looking at when they're talking about that weave. Now, the cool thing they said about all these is when you look it up, each one of these is different. So the way they blend these carbon sheets together essentially gives each rod its own different unique look and different pattern. So I thought that was pretty cool. I also like that they give you a breakdown on the rear grip. This happens to be a 10.5-inch rear grip, which I like. I don't like the super duper short ones. For just kind of all around rod, I like this because it's not hitting my bicep. Now, once I get into, like a flip-in, pitch-in, especially swim baits, that's when I want a little bit longer butt end. But again, that's just preference depending on the person. Now, speaking about the butt end, they do have the hook keeper back here. Y'all know me, I do not like the hook keepers back here. When I go to pick up a rod and I've got a hook back there, I usually tend to pick it up here and then grab it, thinking I'm gonna take off the lure up here, and that's when I get a hook in my hand. So. Somebody did bring up that point on another one of my videos and said it's nice having the hook keeper back there because then when you put a rod stock on, it never hits anything, right? And that is a great point, but for me, I personally just don't like the hook keeper back here. I will probably just end up hooking it right up here, with like single hook baits. If it's a treble hook bait, obviously you got to put it back there, and I always use those bait wraps to protect it. Now, it's nice because these come with the Fuji KW-concept forward tilted guides. So the Fuji guides, of course, are kind of the standard in the industry when you talk about good guides. There's other ones out there. I think Fuji's the known name, right? But they do make very good guides. These have SIC inserts, SIC guide inserts in there, that little piece inside there. So they've got nice SIC inserts in there. And the forward tilt on these line guides is supposed to help with tangles. I don't know, we'll have to test that out, see if that theory holds true, but they look nice. Now, of course, whenever I buy a new rod, I always look down the spine of it to check the spine alignment, make sure all of those guides are in order. So essentially, if you stuck a wire all the way through, make sure it could go through without really touching any of them. Oh, this one looks good. What you don't want to see is any of those line guides like tilted off to the side. Okay, so you want a nice, good, straight rod. Everything looks nice and clear on this one. Now, the reel seat back here, this is what they call a SeaGuide carbon injected reel seat. And it's actually a very different reel seat from anything that I have. So it's carbon injected, it's really smooth. Now, I don't know about that. That could get a little bit slippery if your fish, or your fish hands, your hands get fishy. But I do like that they put a little piece of EVA back here, because when I hold it, that's exactly where my palm hits. And I think if they didn't have that there, it would be uncomfortable. The heel of my hand would be hitting right on the end of that. So I like what they did there. But this is really narrow. It's really thin. So it's not like picking up a rod. I wish I could grab one, but a rod back here where, it's the bigger cork or the EVA and it kind of tapers out. This is real thin and narrow right here. So kind of cool. It's definitely a different feel. You pick it up and it's like, oh, that kind of feels weird, but fit in hand is one of the first things that I look at, and fit in hand is very comfortable with it. My finger can lay here so I can touch the line. I'm a big line fingerer. Back here, everything's nice and comfortable. My pinky goes back behind the reel trigger. Everything is nice there. So I really like that. In hand, it feels really nice. Now, speaking of the reel here, check this out. They have a double locking reel nut, which I have never ever seen before. Somebody's probably done it, but check that out. So the first one comes off and your reel is still seated. You've got two different nuts that you have to unscrew to get your reel off. I like it. When you tighten them down, man, that baby is tight. Now, If it stays tight, I've got a couple rods where it seems like this always loosens up, always. So if this truly does keep them tight all the time, having both of those locked down, I am gonna be a huge, huge fan of that. I like it. It's a nice aesthetics on it. The rod overall is only black, white, and silver. Y'all know me, I'm not like a special bright colors guy, except I think I might have worn the brightest shirt in YouTube history for a review, sorry. When it comes to the rods, I like them very simple. Black, silver, love it. Like, probably one of the prettiest rods I own. Now, pretty doesn't mean anything if it doesn't feel good and catch fish, but on paper, it looks dang good. I'll flip this baby over for you and talk about the ratings. Okay, so what are we looking at here for ratings on it? This is a 7'2" medium power fast action rod. This is rated for lures 1/8 to 5/8 ounce, 8 to 17 pound line. So what am I gonna be using a rod like this for? Well, let's first talk about the reel. This is gonna be lighter lures, obviously 1/8 to 5/8 ounce lures, just barely over a ½ ounce. It's a medium power, so when you bend it, you know, I do the bend test on the floor. It is pretty true to being a medium power rod. I would say the last third of the rod bends. That's usually what I look for in like a fast action rod. And a medium power just means it's gonna take less power to actually bend it down into that max bend where it goes. So power and action on it, everything feels true. I wouldn't say it's extra stiff or extra like smushy, you know. Some reels feel, or some rods feel extra soft. This one feels true. So for me, I'm gonna put a reel on here that is good with lighter lures. To me, that's gonna be the Shimano SLX. For a budget reel that does well with light lures, I don't think you can beat the SLX. $99 reel, it slings light lures very, very well. Now, if you have a little bit more money to spend, like 150 bucks, the Daiwa Tatula 100 is awesome with light lures. So that would be my recommendation on here. Otherwise, you can just go with, you know, your general purpose. If you have a, you know, a Luz LFS, or if you've got a Fuego, Revo X, whatever. It always helps to go down in line weight if you're trying to throw lighter lures. So that's something to keep in mind as well. Speaking of line on something like this, I would go with 15-pound fluorocarbon. Now I've been using that P-Line Tactical. It is a little bit more expensive, but it's like top of the line. It feels so good. It's soft, it casts really well, but it's nice and abrasion resistant. If you're looking for a budget fluorocarbon 100%, I don't think you can beat the Seaguide Red Label. I still use that on a bunch of my rods. So again, 15-pound for me, I feel is a great all-around. If you wanted to go just a little bit lighter with smaller lures, I personally wouldn't go below 12-pound. 15-pound is kind of my all-around go-to. If you're using braid, I would say 30-pound braid. That's my favorite. I don't like to go down to 20-pound on a bait caster, but that's just me. So use what you like. Okay, so we've talked about all the features, the reel, the line. What lures would I use on a rod like this, rated up to 5/8 of an ounce? Now, to me, this is a perfect weightless plastic rod. So your weightless flukes, weightless stick baits. Even if you throw like a floating weightless worm with just a little tiny weight on it, this is a perfect type of rod for that. I also like to go into my smaller reaction baits. So if I'm throwing like a 1/4 ounce spinner bait, even some 3/8 ounce spinner baits, like the little bit smaller compact ones, I think work well on here because they've got smaller blades. Overall, that spinner bait weighs less, so you can really load it on a medium rod like this, fling it out there. I think it works really well for those. And really any smaller hooked retrieve, you know, cast and retrieve lure, so like a smaller swim bait, if you've got like a little smaller compact chatterbait with a smaller hook, this type of rod would do perfect. Some other lures I would use this for. This rating of a rod, 5/8 ounce, is my favorite for finesse jigs. So a 5/16 ounce finesse jig. This is one of those Luke Clausen dirty jigs. 5/16 ounce is my favorite for finesse jigs when I'm throwing them from the bank. I've also got this one I'm excited to try this year. This little, I got a little Cumberland Pro lures, just a little tiny finesse jig. But using a rod like this, you're not going to overpower these hooks, because in these finesse jigs, you've got a much smaller hook. It's not like a big flipping hook or a flipping, you know, jig. It doesn't have a big gargantuan hook on it. So for the smaller size lure, 5/16 ounce finesse jig with the smaller hook, a 5/8 ounce rod like this is my absolute favorite. That's what I use this year. Love it, love it, love it. So let's see, weightless, finesse jigs. Oh, also swim baits, open hook swim baits that don't have a super big, thick hook. Now this hook's kind of on the edge. I probably would go down to something a little bit smaller. This just happened to be the one I have laying here, but open hook swim baits like this. So not like the belly weighted swim baits where the hook is like hidden up here in the top, because on those, I swing hard on them. I mean, you've got to get through plastic. You've got to actually drive that hook up through. I personally like a little bit heavier hook, a stiffer medium heavy, or even a heavy to set those big hooks. You know, if you use like an Owner Beast, a 6/0, I swing on them, I swing. Now, when you've got an open hook like this, you don't have to swing for the fences as hard because that's open. It's open and there, so I usually just give a good pull up into them. So open hook swim baits like this would be good. Now this would even be good for some treble hook baits, especially if you threw like monofilament on this. You could throw your smaller liplesses, like 1/4 ounce lipless, smaller square bills. It's still got enough backbone to be able to set that, but it's light enough to be able to whip that baby out there. You know, that's the problem when you run into some of these smaller cranks is if you've got a real bendy, real parabolic bend rod, like an actual cranking rod, and you're trying to pull that through grass, you know, rip a lipless through grass or pop a square bill over wood and stuff. I personally don't like a super spongy cranking rod for that. So I like more of a, you know, a medium power rod like this. Again, I'm going to use that monofilament on there to help compensate and keep that fish pinned. So that's just my preference. That's how I like to do it. You know, you can ask a pure cranking guy and he might like something different. So a lot of it just comes down to preference, but that's what I'm gonna do with it. What else? Oh, lighter Texas rig. So if you're throwing just like a regular Texas rig, say I have 15-pound line on this, just kind of your regular hook Texas rigs, not the super thick, they'll call them, what is it? Super line hook or like extra thick, heavy cover hooks, anything like that where it's a heavier gauge, bigger, thicker hook. So on something like this, my kind of smaller setup, great for throwing like a little 1/8 ounce Texas rig, 1/4 ounce Texas rig with more of just a normal hook. So if I'm not around a ton of cover, just kind of a light do-it-all, you know, if you were hitting a pond, that's a great way to go. So this would be great for smaller Texas rigs too. Now, kind of the last thing I was thinking, I just happened to see a package of these here. I have some of these 4-inch finesse sticks. Y'all saw these in an unboxing not too long ago. If you're throwing like a smaller, you know, kind of a finesse shaky head, like a 1/4 ounce shaky head, that would go really well on here too. You know, it's not super finesse where I'd throw like on a spinning rod, usually like an 1/8 ounce or a 1/16. If I'm bulking it up just a little bit, you know, going with something like this or like a bigger trick worm, this would be perfect for shaky heads like that too. So it's really a very versatile rod. A medium power rod like this, you can do a lot on it. I don't go into my heavy stuff. Obviously my heavier hooks, that's something to keep in mind. So that's how I would set it up. Comment below and let me know what kind of setup would you use on a rod like this. Reel, line, lures, comment below. I always love hearing from you all. That's gonna do it for me for today. For the Okuma Psycho Stick, I'm excited to get it out. And I think this this specific rod retails for $219, so it's a little bit higher priced. I'll put the link down below. I think Tackle Warehouse still had a few when I checked. So, but again, you're getting a lighter, more sensitive rod, and that's one of the biggest things you get when you go up in rod price. So that's something I need to talk about. That's a whole different video and a whole different breakdown. We'll do one of those soon. But anyway, today's subscribed fishing friend is John Hancock. John, thank you for always watching. I appreciate you supporting, man. You're a good dude. Everybody else out there, thank you so much for watching, supporting. I've got a couple more review type unboxing videos coming. The next one's gonna be a budget setup. I'm pretty excited because I think it was a good find, but that's enough for me. I gotta edit. Thank you all so much for watching. Until next time.